Refreshed, energized, and ready for this weekend. I'm Tristan Ryans alongside the one and only Kevin Walker. This is our 21st episode of the Lap Podcast, episode 5 of season 2, heading into the Japanese Grand Prix, the first of a triple header between Japan, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. We are your destination for Formula One. We are the F1 podcast. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It costs you exactly $0.00. Nothing at all to support the podcast, support the channel, helps us move on up the algorithm. Also, feel free to hit us up on all the socials. They're scrolling at the bottom of your screen right now. Khaki Kevin Walker, as they call him around town. How was your weekend off, actually? It's our first, no race weekend. You do anything fun? Any fun special activities?
I wouldn't say I did anything fun. Just kind of waiting around for F1 to start up again, just keeping up with all the news that's been going on, waiting for if they were or if they weren't going to do a white livery for Red Bull. And they did. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just kind of waiting on some F1 news to drop here and there. Nothing too exciting. Spent some time with them. I don't want to say the missus, I guess, but with my girlfriend. But other than that, nothing too crazy.
Confirmed. Just kind of work. He is taken to our audience. I'm sure they were very concerned for you.
Multiple comments.
Very happy for you. Yeah. I mean, the DMs were just flying. You know. My weekend, spent some family time, friend time. It was a good time, and really busy weekend. Got a nice new hat, if you hadn't noticed. But look, let's hop into this Japanese Grand Prix weekend. We got some liveries to be talking about. Red Bull, I mean, they absolutely cooked. It's an ode to the 2021 I think they used it during Hungary. I think they used it for a couple races. I think they also used it in Japan. But the white, red Japanese Grand Prix livery this year, I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I don't have any complaints for this. We did a whole livery ranking video earlier in our first episode really of the podcast this season. And honestly, this would probably be the number one, if not very narrow number two overall for the entire grid, in my opinion. If this is what if they walked out with for the beginning of the season, for the entire 2025 championship season, really, this would probably be my favorite one on the grid. What do you think?
Favorite one on the grid? Yeah, I could see it. I wouldn't personally say it's my favorite on the grid. I think the reason why we like it is because of the historical aspect of the livery, of what it represents for Red Bull, what it represents for now the new seat owner of Yuki Tsunoda, and the relevance that it has for the Japanese Grand Prix. I do like the livery. Don't get it wrong. I think the colors work really well. It bringing a classic back to life. It's amazing. Number one on the grid is kind of tough to say though. Maybe I'm just a hater though.
I mean, the V-carb one is really good. I
do enjoy the V-carb one.
I like the chrome level aspect of the actual bulls on the car. Like the chrome feature of that red versus like a matte red looks really nice. It's a good touch.
I agree.
They didn't overcomplicate it. I like the Japanese flag ode right there where the numbers are, right there towards the center of the nose, with the number 22 on it. I mean, it looks really clean. Number 1 there. Overall looks clean. The nice little touches for the Honda logo. Yep, hopping your cursor right over that. The chrome aspect of the red to me just really helps bring this all together. It's not matte white. I think it's a little bit of a change from what they did in 2021, but for me, it's a 10 out of 10 livery. The final year for Red Bull's Honda partnership as well. It's an ode to that livery back in 2021, which in my personal opinion is iconic. People have been demanding this, rendition of that exact livery for years now, and Red Bull, in my opinion, they delivered. Other teams also this week. Oh, but by the way, and for it to be Yuki Tsunoda's first race with Red Bull to don this Japanese themed livery, it makes that entire moment that much more special.
I agree.
This is perfect for the moment. It's perfect for the weekend. It's perfect for the driver lineup. I mean, it knocks the ball right out of the park. Another team that dropped a very special livery for this Japanese Grand Prix weekend, the Haas team. I also love this. They're black, white, and red as well. That's just their regular colors. But what they did with the cherry blossoms, obviously helped inspire a little bit of the changes you can see behind us with the green screen going on. The pink, the cherry blossoms, I think they really work well with Haas's livery in a way that if you had pitched it to me on paper, I might not have seen the vision, right? Do you not like this?
I actually have a hot take. I like this better.
You like it more than the Red Bull?
It's my favorite livery going into the weekend.
I think I disagree, but it's not far down the list.
I think I'm in the minority in that decision. TLPs, let me know if I'm the only one. If I'm the only one that thinks that this Haas livery is better than the Red Bull one, and we're talking about fine margins here. I think the cherry blossom looks amazing. I think it looks fantastic. My one thing is I wish the MoneyGram on the front wing wasn't red. I wish somehow, some way you could have gotten that into a pink or maybe a white with a red accent or something like that.
Yeah. We take graphic design really seriously here on the Lap podcast.
What really sells it for me is this side pod right here. That Haas
in the pink gradient
and that hot pink gradient with the cherry blossom flowing alongside with that black accent. I mean,
it all works. I think the only thing that does stand out on this really, I mean, you made a good point. The only thing that really stands out against all of this is the red MoneyGram logos, which, I mean, that's like the title sponsor of the entire team. You're not going to go away from that.
Right.
You know, they paid for those, for all these like optics and all these eyes to be seeing it. But I really do like it. I think I still like the Red Bull one a little bit more, but I mean, they knocked it out of the park. This might be one of my favorite like liveries I've seen over the last few years.
I really enjoy this livery a lot. I think they really did an incredible job.
Plus, they went in a direction that a lot of teams probably wouldn't have gone. Like going with the cherry blossoms while they're like in season in Japan for this Grand Prix is really special. Why would you ruin that?
Speaking of doing things that other teams will not do.
Oh man,
the steak car. Anybody?
Okay, I have a real question.
Wagyu beef?
I have a real question. Because we're recording this on a Wednesday. We haven't seen any practice sessions. I don't think I've seen any media of them actually like with this on.
Is it real? Is it real?
Yeah, that's the question.
We looked up the merch. The merch is selling it as if it is a steak car.
The merch is real. 100% real.
They're selling mouse pads.
Look, I buy a lot of merch from various teams. I'm kind of wait until Audi hits the grid to maybe tap into that. I don't know that I'm going to go out of my way, but they did play really well into it with their merchandise. I mean, it's new. Part of me loves this and hates it, and part of me hates it and loves it.
What part of you loves this?
The memes. The memes alone make me love this.
I swear to
because for the last like couple years, everybody on the grid has made the same joke of like steak, A1 sauce, blah, blah, blah. We've done it on this podcast. So for me, they're just embracing it.
But why? You can do this any weekend. Why do it the Japanese Grand Prix weekend? It's like, hey, everyone's doing really incredible liveries. We're going to make our car the color of steak.
Look, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think it's real. I don't actually expect them to roll out at Suzuka with this Wagyu looking car.
Tristan Blake Ryans, as I sit here right now, if I see a steak car rolling on the Japan Grand Prix this weekend, I'm buying merch.
You're buying merch?
If they stick to the bit so much that they actually put this car on track and make drivers drive this car in front of public, yes, they stick to the bit. I'm buying the merch.
I love your commitment to it.
If they stick to the commitment, I will do the commitment as well.
Look,
what's next?
Look, the reality is as we wrap up this little bit of the segment, it's a meme, and that I embrace memes. I'm a part of that culture. I love it. It's so stupid that I like it. I just don't. I kind of hope it isn't real, because if it is real, I don't think we'll ever. No, this will be one of the ugliest cars.
Okay. Yeah, I love
that has ever graced the entire Formula One grid.
I love that you bring that up, because I have a rival for this.
You think there's an uglier car?
I think that there's a car that could compete that I know you do not enjoy.
Where are you gonna go with this? I'm trying to think of cars that were really ugly, historically speaking. Are you talking about like recent history?
Pretty recent. I do want to say this one was last year.
Oh, this car. Okay, we got to share this tab here in a second. Oh, this one. I don't hate this one more than that. I don't like this car either. This is definitely very low on my list of cars.
For those who don't know,
liveries.
Last year V Carb did a Levi, was it a Levi jeans sponsor of some kind of jean sponsor, and did a jean.
I think it was a like a Hugo Boss. Yeah, it's a Hugo Boss sponsorship.
Okay, so they did some kind of jean sponsorship, and they made their car jean themed. So that is where this rivalry comes from, which is so beautifully done.
You mean livery?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like this one either. I think this one would have made more sense. And I don't think they ran this one in Texas. This one would have made more sense for that market. For the market that's like a couple hours away from us. Like in Austin, 100%, this one would have made a lot more sense. Having it in Singapore, of all places, to me was a weird look. But I'm not a fan. I don't like that one, but I think the state car is...
When do you run the state livery?
I don't think you do. It's an abomination. It's a silly abomination.
You have to run it. When do you run it?
When?
Yeah.
What market?
Yeah. What market's like, yeah, steak?
Austin.
You really think so?
Yeah, the United States Grand Prix. We love eating stuff. This is stuff that looks like food. We're Americans. This is what we do. We eat things.
Okay, you know what? Actually,
think about the Instagram.
Okay, but hold on.
Think about the TikTok. Think about the social media. You'd have influencers walking the grid, walking up to the car and giving it like that's your marketing right there. Giving them like I'm looking the car.
I think the connection here is with Wagyu beef. I think Wagyu beef is supposed to be either not originated, but kind of like its foundation is supposed to be Japan.
This isn't a real car.
I think that's the connection.
I can't believe we talked about it for this long. This is not a real car.
I hope this is the real car.
This is all right. All right. This is a straight up diss, but this is probably the most we're going to talk about Steak F1 this year beyond them DNFing.
Tough.
So, I mean, if this is the marketing campaign,
think about it. If they put that car on track and they DNF that into the wall, the memes.
You mean cook it into the wall?
Exactly.
I'm fucking.
You're sitting a raw car on the street.
I'm having a fun time. Look, let's move on.
I don't even know where to go from here. I mean, that's kind of all we had for the podcast.
I mean,
really just talk about.
You mean to tell me that Gabriel Bortoletto and Nico Hulkenberg are going to be riding the meat wagon?
Okay. Last question. Nice. Last question. What do the suits look like?
You can't throw some. Yeah, that's a great question. They look like bacon.
I was thinking the same thing. All right, so
all right, look,
we're a very professional, serious F1 team. Our car is Wagyu beef steak. We need you to look like bacon and drive. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. We talked about this car for way longer than we need to.
I think we talked about it an appropriate amount.
I think I kindly disagree with you, but nonetheless, we need to move on to our storylines as we walk into this Japanese Grand Prix weekend. The big question on everybody's mind, and we are definitely going to be leading off with it, is going to be how will Yuki Tsunoda's first Red Bull weekend go? Kevin Walker, your thoughts, your expectations as we approach Suzuka.
My thoughts are this weekend is really poised for Yuki to succeed. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the audio, or we're not gonna play the audio because it's not in English, but you can read the quote, and if not, I'll read it for you. For our audio listeners, everyone is being really considerate and trying not to put pressure on me, which is really kind of them. But honestly, please have high expectations and put all the pressure on me. I can't guarantee that I'll live up to those expectations, but I'll do my absolute best. And I think that's a very humble yet realistic approach from Yuki Tsunoda. He's been, you got to think about it. He's been in this seat for a long time, not this particular seat, but the limbo between the Red Bull seats that occur for a long time. And he's been the cocky Yuki Tsunoda. He's been the doubtful Yuki Tsunoda. He's been the on top of the world, and he's been all the way down on the ground. We've seen all levels of it. And right now he's just like, look, I'm going to do the best that I can. And that's all I can do. And I think from that perspective, I appreciate it. And if he can keep this clear mind, if he can just say, hey, I'm going to do what Yuki Tsunoda can do, I think he's going to have success this weekend. We kind of talked about it last week. Points finish, You're getting a thumbs up for me. That's how I see it. Because you get a points finish, guess what? You already did better than Liam did in 2 races. So points finish is a good weekend. Obviously, anything better than that, anything above P10 is way better than what we could expect, especially being that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in Kev Talks track, but this is a Honda circuit. So therefore, Red Bull may have a little bit of an advantage this weekend. So we'll see if that also plays part for Yuki.
Look, I think overall the pressure is on, and embracing the culture, I think psychologically, Yuki understands the situation he's going to be in. I think he understands what this opportunity means. Racing in front of your home crowd, these are all, very pressure-inducing, things for anybody, regardless of going through a mid-season driver switch this early into the year. As far as we know, he's supposed to stick no matter what, but there is a lot of pressure here. There are a lot of questions that we are going to hopefully get answers to, whether providing, for this weekend. Overall, finally getting your shot with the senior team, how close will Yuki really be to Max is going to be the overall gauge, right? If he's within 0.3 of Max at the end of Q3 or at the end of, but the margins are so thin this year. I mean, even being within 0.3 of a front runner might knock you out in Q2. But overall, if he can make it into a Q3, if he can last into a Q2, that's already setting the bar higher. That's already exceeding the expectations. Liam Lawson obviously struggled mightily in that car, or else Red Bull would not have made this decision so brazenly. So for his first race weekend, for Yuki Tsunoda in front of his home crowd in the Red Bull, I think, and I hope that he is embracing that pressure the way that he's been saying it in the media. I want to say that Yuki Tsunoda should hopefully have a good weekend. You understand everything that's right in front of you. All you can do is your best, right? He's not going to be looking over his shoulder any more than he was walking into this year. We talked about it in preseason. Yeah. This guy was already driving for an opportunity to remain on this Formula One grid moving forward anyway. So it's not like the pressure has gotten that much bigger. Worst case scenario is it doesn't really work out. I mean, Red Bull are obviously going to have to punt this season going into 2026 anyway, if you can't find the proper driver pairing. I don't think they're going to bring a rookie Isaac Hadjar into the fold the way they did to an Alex Albon years ago.
Right.
And immediately expect him to start succeeding. We're going to find out a lot this weekend, and Yuki Tsunoda and by proxy, Liam Lawson are also going to be a huge part of answering a ton of questions. And I do want to pivot to Liam Lawson at this juncture. Is he going to be able to return to form? That's going to be the big question for Liam Lawson. In the V-Carb, can we see the shades of Liam Lawson that we saw over the years during those last 11 Grand Prix before this very tumultuous 2025? For me, at least my thoughts on it are, back in V-Carb, alongside the rookie Isaac Hadjar, who has so far been able to compete with Yuki Tsunoda, I think that Liam just needs a pretty promising weekend. If you're within a couple places of your teammate, high, low, like that's not a bad deal. And if this car actually lands in the points on the actual Grand Prix side of things, which so far this season, because of strategy, not because of pure pace, it has struggled to do so. If Liam Lawson can somehow snag his first points in the V-Carb, it's going to answer a ton of questions. The car, V-Carb, is going to be A, easier to drive. B, Liam Lawson will be able to display, look, I am a points scoring caliber driver in Formula One, but fundamentally speaking, the Red Bull senior car does not agree with me, does not agree with my driving style, and I'm just the black to Max Verstappen's white when it comes to how other drivers really are affected by particular setups, by particular cars, by the way that teams build and structure the car for competition. So is it the car or is it the driver? I mean, that's going to be the big question on everybody's minds within this entire Red Bull family walking into this weekend. And a return to form, I'm not going to lay out any expectations. If Liam Lawson can snag P14, if I'm not mistaken, that might be his best on-track result. So that's still a strong weekend.
Yeah, it would be. It would be because we would have a DNF, and then we would have, I think, P18 or something.
17. Yeah.
Christian actually did talk about this a little bit, saying something along the lines of like it was clear that he was struggling, and it became a little bit more obvious that Red Bull had put a little bit too much weight on the shoulders of a very young and experienced Liam Lawson. That much could be said going into the season. That much could be said when that decision process was being made for Red Bull. We talked about it. There was a lot of drivers out there on the market. It was like, look, there's a lot of different guys that could end up in this Red Bull seat. And Liam Lawson was definitely one of those guys that we talked about. But to say that you put too much weight on his shoulders it's kind of like a duh moment. Like, you obviously put him in a situation where, hey, last year we lost a constructors championship because our driver number 2 bled points.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bleed points. And you're super young, and guess what? You got to race against somebody that may already be on the Mount Rushmore of greatest F1 drivers of all time.
Sure. Yeah.
But hey, just don't bleed points, right? Like that's and Alex Albon talked about it. Like the seconds differential between he and Max when he was racing, and yet he was still not getting great results, I guess you would say. So yeah, of course it was a lot of weight on Liam's shoulders, and I think for us that's kind of why we were like, look, maybe don't put this kind of situation on a rookie. Maybe don't put this kind of situation on a young driver. This is Yuki's chance to step up. It was Yuki's spot to take last year. It all made sense. It was like, look, he's been there the longest. He's waited the longest. He's been in your camp forever. Give him the chance. Give him the opportunity. And we're obviously happy for Yuki. We think I think he's going to do great. I think that he can get this seat for the remainder of the year, and we'll see where things go from there. But it's kind of delayed at this point. Like if I'm Yuki, I'm like, look, hey, thanks. Like, I'm super grateful to be here, but
you don't want to be a part of a mid-season driver swap.
No, you don't. Especially when
like, is that? I mean, admit it. Like, you having the entire at least off season to get acclimated, having the entire infrastructure built around your success or failure, and then like from one team to the other, whether it's in the same family or not, immediately getting thrown into more tumultuous waters. Like, there is a lot here that could go wrong.
Well, I mean, look, I understand.
But it's an amazing opportunity. You're not going to say no.
I understand that V-Carb is a sister team, but let's not make any joke. Being in the V-Carb seat and being in the Red Bull seat next to Max Verstappen, 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
Completely different things.
And there is one more person within this entire weekend that I think, and moving forward, really, that I think stands to gain the most from this potentially. And he's not on the grid currently. I apologized a little bit to him last week, but
did you?
Kinda. The full apology will maybe come depending on how this weekend goes.
What has to happen for?
It's Checo Perez, by the way. You ruined my tease a tad, but it's okay.
Real TLPs know.
Look, the real TLPs know my rants were magnetic. Anyway, look, Checo Perez last year talked massively about struggling in this car. And as the car regressed over the course of the season, Checo, his results obviously got worse and worse and worse and were drastically worse. But as we learn more about this Red Bull car specifically, we're going to learn a lot as far as the undrivability that has been reported so regularly when it comes to this team, when it comes to this car, when it comes to this camp. And if for some reason Yuki Tsunoda also struggles with this, Cadillac, we're walking onto the grid next year, might be looking at a driver literally just south in Mexico as a great A, sponsorship option, B, a savvy, solid driver to walk back into the sport with, but C, just somebody overall who is a race winner as well, who has competed at the top level of this sport. So there's a lot of opportunity here for Checo Perez as well. We could very well see him on the grid next year, but it honestly, it really does kind of rely on Yuki Tsunoda's performance over the course of the rest of this season. If Yuki struggles, Lawson struggles, whoever the heck else they decide to toss into that seat maybe struggles, that's going to put a lot more emphasis on it's the car rather than the driver. over the car. We had to talk about some other things, though, walking into this Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Let's start at the top of the order. I want to talk about McLaren. I want to talk about your boys. I want to talk about, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris.
Boys?
Your boys. The question for me, can McLaren pull further ahead? They finished 11 seconds ahead of Mercedes in China, a gap not as close as we thought it really could be based on how strongly they looked in Australia. So did the wing regulations affect things? Is the development not quite as far ahead as maybe we would have assumed? Look, a 1-2 finish is still massive, don't get me wrong, but can McLaren really pull further ahead, not just in the points as we kind of expect them to, but in true on-track performance in Suzuka?
I think that this track plays to the advantage of McLaren in many aspects. You've got two long straights, kind of similar to what we had in China a few weeks ago. Not near as long in the straights, but you get two long straights. These are aggressive corners. These are going to be high, fast-paced corners. Something that McLaren has been kind of good at since midway through last year, to be honest. I think that it's going to be something that they are going to look forward to. I do think that this could be a weekend where McLaren, I don't want to say they separate themselves quite yet. I don't think this is the weekend, actually.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think that this is the weekend because I think there's other cars on this track. I think there's other cars on this grid that this track does suit them well. We'll talk about that a little bit more with my predictions going into this race. While I do think McLaren will do well, I do not think that they separate themselves quite yet in Japan.
I think I might agree.
I had to backtrack there a little bit because I wanted to sit there and I really
look. I mean, this team
is
still leading the constructors and the drivers' championship. The facet of this that becomes really interesting is even if McLaren really can pull ahead, we still have a driver championship battle at the top here, very similar to what we had seen from other top teams in the past, right? This could very well get very hairy depending on, let's say Lando Norris has a bad weekend or Oscar Piastri gets bogged down and, he messes up during qualifying or something like that. This is still a championship battle the rest of the way. Even if McLaren do have a really strong season and walk away with a constructors championship, the expectations are really high right now. We've only gone through 2 race weekends. We've got 22 more to still, sort our way through. I'm really curious to see what they can do in Japan. I think the expectations are reasonably high. This is a team that has already won, again, the first 2 races of the season. The only thing they haven't won is a sprint. So overall, I think they'll probably do just fine. I don't think any teams are bringing any massive upgrades to start the season quite yet. There are going to be some teams, obviously, that are going to be bringing things in the future. But overall, this is probably still going to be a strong McLaren weekend. But for me, the time difference is going to be the big indicator. If they're less than 11 seconds away from the next closest constructor, that's going to be kind of concerning. Even if you're still winning the races, like people are catching up to you a lot quicker than you think they are.
Yeah, that takes one good upgrade weekend before they're kind of on your tail.
100%. Another team on this grid that needs a good weekend for sure is Ferrari. Got the Ferrari cap on, but let's talk about them. They were plagued by mishaps in Australia. Hamilton won the Chinese sprint. Potentially a signal of things to come, and then a P5, P6 on the feature race, and then disqualifications for 2 completely different reasons, mind you, as a result of what was it? I think it was a skid plate infraction and then a weight issue for Ferrari. Yes. So look, like they've been riding the mids to the highs to the lows so far this season. With that extra week off, I think that Ferrari really, or at least hopefully, will have had an opportunity to really regroup, recenter themselves top down, and start working on A, upgrades for the car, B, making sure that everything is fine-tuned and effective and efficient, and that they can move past any opening, slow-moving, growing pains to start this year.
I think that this weekend is the weekend that Ferrari can turn it around. I think that's the reason why I don't feel completely comfortable with saying McLaren are going to distance themselves this weekend, because I think this weekend is the weekend that Ferrari kind of put it. I do. I think this is the weekend that Ferrari can put it together. I think I mean, I guess I'll just spoil it. I think that this weekend is the weekend for Charles Leclerc.
You really think so?
I really think so.
Okay. Interesting. Like, do you see him like doing a P1 lockout kind of situation, or and then just riding off into the sunset?
I can't predict qualifying, but I can predict that if he ends up somewhere, if he can get, obviously he has to get into Q3, but if he can get in top 5 of Q3, this is a track that overtakes are very possible, even with just one DRS zone. If he can get into that top 5 spot going into going into the race, I really think Charles Leclerc should be up in the running for winning this race.
I think they should be more competitive. I hope that they're more competitive. It's always better when Ferrari are in it, especially with this driver pairing of Hamilton and, Charles Leclerc. Overall, because they've been so all over the place this season, even through 3, results driven performances, 2 races in that sprint, I just don't know where to place them. Right now, they seem like the 3rd fastest car on the grid overall.
This is my last week believing in Ferrari. After this, we're done. This is my one chance for
I think that's going to be a lot of people. Like, if they deliver another like 5, 6, it's like, okay, they're going to be hanging around. They're definitely one of the faster cars on the grid, but like, this is going to be a really slow start to a season. Mercedes right now are pretty clearly ahead. McLaren are very much so ahead. They need a strong result in Japan. If anything, if I'm Fred Vasseur and the rest of the Ferrari team, you really want to walk out of this weekend feeling like you've at least answered a lot of questions. Moving a little bit further down the grid, or further up the grid if you're Ferrari, Mercedes, can they keep their upwards trajectory?
Posing it to me, you're the Mercedes man. I think that they can. I don't predict a race win. But I think you could see a George podium. I think that would be a fantastic weekend for you. No?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 3 race podiums in a row to start the season would be fantastic.
Right. I think that this could be a really good weekend for Mercedes. And I think that this is kind of one of those weekends where we might get a lot more answers from the question of, hey, where can we expect Mercedes to fit in the constructors this year? I think this is another weekend where we kind of start answering some more of those questions as we learn a little bit more and more about what each team's going to be about this year. I think we're going to learn that Mercedes is going to be a real competitor.
I think overall, yeah, you and I are probably going to agree on this. Like 2 P3 podiums this season for
I didn't
George.
say anything negative about Mercedes. So
exactly.
That's probably why.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. You know the way to my heart. But look, 2 P3 podiums to start the season for George Russell. Strong performances from Kimi Antonelli. I think the only thing for Kimi so far is just improving a bit in qualifying and avoiding just performance damage. He got some during Australia, during the qualifying, put him all the way in P16. And then during the Chinese race, got caught up behind the Ferraris and took some floor damage again. So for him, it's just have a clean weekend because the car is good enough that you can be competing up towards the top with these Ferraris, with these Red Bulls, rather than having to, kind of nestle behind them and hope, things go differently. But overall, strong weekend so far for Kimi. I think that's probably going to continue. I think if I'm Kimi, it's very reasonable to start expecting like, hey, like if I can't land P5, like this might not be a terrific weekend for me, considering that George Russell is putting it on podium so far this year. Mercedes already reported they're going to bring some upgrades, that they're working on some things. I'm excited to see if they can pull away some weekends on the top step throughout the rest of this season. But as far as Japan is concerned, I think P3 is probably pretty reasonable. Overall, they got a strong car. They're going in the right direction. If they get a P4, P5, Kimi Antonelli does, like a P6 performance, that's still a really good weekend overall. It's going to keep them in P2 in the constructors. Overall, yeah, I think the upward trajectory continues. I'm really curious to see exactly what those upgrades look like in the future. Moving on to our next segment, I'm going to highlight Kevin Walker here as we move on to one of our newer segments for this season. It's time for Kev Talks Track.
Yeah, so this is Kev Talks Track. I'm going to break down every race weekend. Going into the race weekend, I'm going to break down the track that we're getting ready to race on, a little bit of some information, a little bit of some weather expectations, what the track is known for, what to expect, what drivers do well. And every week, Tristan tries to give me a little bit more information on the track and quiz me just a tiny bit. So this week, we are in Japan for the Suzuka International Racecourse. It was built in 1987. It is most known for being a figure 8 race course, which you can see on the screen right here. 53 laps, 1 DRS zone, like I mentioned before, 2 straights.
Kind of straight.
I was going to say one of them was a little bit curved, but 2 relatively straight nevertheless. Just under 6 kilometers per lap for this one. And you're going to have the lap record is owned by Sir Lewis Hamilton, which is the from 2019 with a 1 minute 30 seconds and 983 thousandths. Behind that, something that the track is also known for, other than having a 8 shape, is the elevation changes. Starting from the bottom of the track to the top of the track, if you will, it climbs in elevation hellaciously. So that's going to be something to look for. Very fast-paced corners, like I talked about before. The weather. This is where things could get interesting, ladies and gentlemen. All practices and all qualifying look clear. Race day, 80% chance of rain, ladies and gentlemen. 80% chance of rain. Now, we're not expecting anything crazy. It could be just some showers. Most of the rainfall is expected to hit in the morning time in Japan, but they're saying that there could be some showers throughout the race, and we know what showers bring. Some pretty crazy.
Mayflowers?
Well, we're a little bit away from there, but other than that, something else, like I mentioned before, it is a Honda-owned circuit, so Red Bull could very well be a dominant force this weekend, especially with Yuki being a literal certified registered Honda driver. That's kind of his thing, for a while.
Lawson's also got a lot of experience here too, doing Formula Japan. So
a good weekend for Red Bull, possibly on the heels. Last year, a Red Bull 1-2, Max and Checo locked out the podium and locked out the race win, both in qualifying and in the actual race. So Red Bull, like I said, been dominant for a while. This was also during that time where Max and Checo were firing on all cylinders this time last year, but nevertheless, Red Bull 1-2 last year.
Wow. Well, fantastic. I wanted to add a little bit to this segment. It's perfectly awesome that you get a nice moment to shine here, but I wanted to bring a little bit of history to this track too. Home of the iconic collision between Senna and Prost to decide the 1990 World Drivers' Championship. Senna also won a title in Japan with a monster 16th to 1st place win in 1988. Kimi Räikkönen had a 17th to 1st win in 2005 with the McLaren racing team. Max winning his 2nd World Drivers' Championship at this circuit in 2022 during a wet and ugly day, winning over 40 minutes of race time by 27 seconds. And then not in Suzuka, in 1976, the title won at the Japanese Grand Prix in Fuji. James Hunt capping off the insane battle with Niki Lauda for the championship that year. You got to see that during the film Rush as well, but another just fantastic moment in F1 history. And also, Fernando Alonso had the infamous overtake over Michael Schumacher at 130R during that not straight that we were mentioning a little bit earlier. A very famous clip. You could probably find it anywhere on social media, where in the post race they asked him why he made the move when he made the move, going at 200 something plus miles an hour. And he said, I knew he would break because he has a wife and kids at home. So Chad Lonzo, huge moment there. But yeah, Kev Talks track. Got to round that out with a little bit of history. We got to, add the stakes, how big these weekends are and how big these venues really are too. So fantastic job, Kevin, as always. Love to throw a little history in there. It's time to move on now to our P10 game. We didn't talk about this last week. There's no real reason to it, but now as we approach another point scoring opportunity, another point scoring weekend, I threw a nice little graphic together. It's incredibly sexy and awesome to look at, but it gets the job done. So on the right side of the screen there, you're going to see the point spread, the 25 in the middle, all the way to 1 point on either end of that spectrum. We had a rough Chinese Grand Prix, to put it lightly. I only walked away with 6 points. Kevin only walked away with 4. Alonso didn't quite deliver.
I'm surprised I walked away with 4. I pretty much got nothing right.
Yeah.
So
Alonso had it was just a rough weekend overall. But yeah, Yuki Tsunoda had a rough day. I was looking great up until that, that bad strategy call, and then his wings snapping behind dirty air of I think it was Carlos Sainz during that race. Lando Norris came up just shy of getting me some extra points as well. But if you guys also want to play along at home, this is effectively how it looks, how it works. You can put it together on a Google Doc. That's what I've got. A first retirement bonus worth 10 points, race winner bonus worth 5 points, and then you have that sliding scale once again, 25 points all the way down to 1 point. There is no such thing as a 0 point weekend, even if you DNF on the formation lap a la Isaac Hadjar. So fun game we like to play. And as we walk into the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, I want to ask you, Kevin, who do you have for P10?
P10, it's somebody I've used before, somebody I believe in, somebody I need to work out. Give me Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz.
I'm riding with the Williams, people. I don't know how many times I need to tell you, okay? It's going to happen, and I'm riding with it.
Okay.
Carlos Sainz.
All right. We can do this in snake order. My P10, the man, the myth, the legend himself, so far has yet to finish a Grand Prix weekend.
The man, the myth, the legend, huh?
Yeah. The man who overtook Michael Schumacher on 130R. Give me Fernando Alonso to finally get a race finish under his belt this season.
Do you really think he's going to be able to get it done in his rookie year, though?
You know, if anybody should be under the hot seat, it's got to be Fernando Alonso. You know, I mean, that's
Lance Stroll's putting the pressure on.
Lance is having a really good year so far. I'm going to give him credit, but I think that kind of stops here because Lance Stroll is, in fact, my first retirement prediction for the Japanese Grand Prix. He crashed here within the last 2 years, and I think it's going to happen again.
I knew the hate was coming. I knew it was coming.
It's not
my DNF is going to be Nico Hülkenberg, hopefully in a yeah, we'll see what
from the back of the grid.
Yeah.
And who do you got to win? You said Charles Leclerc, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Charles.
Okay,
I got Charles winning.
All right, and for me, I still believe in the McLarens this weekend, even if you don't. It was a tough decision for me between both Lando.
I just like to kind of ride the middle. Like if they win, like great.
You're the guy that likes to predict his team to not win, so that way when they win, you can feel like you've been pleasantly surprised.
No, I genuinely do think that this is a weekend that we could kind of see.
To answer my own question, though, I'm going to pick Oscar Piastri to put together a back-to-back win. Chinese Grand Prix to the Japanese Grand Prix.
Well, come on, like imagine Nico Hülkenberg like respectfully smashing a steak car into the wall.
I can picture it. I could grill it. But I just don't think it's going to happen. Look,
it'll be my lock screen for a while.
That's all we got for this week. Next week, we are going to be previewing the Bahrain Grand Prix, bringing our reaction to all the drama and madness from Japan, dropping our predictions for Bahrain and more. Make sure to subscribe. It costs absolutely nothing, guys. TLPs, if you're watching this, you're a new viewer, you just stumbled across this podcast. First off, thank you so much for watching, but subscribe, get involved, comment, like, share it with your friends if you feel so inclined. We appreciate all the love and support. Check us out on all the social medias. They've been scrolling at the bottom of the screen this entire video. We'd absolutely love to interact with you guys online. And until next time, I'm Tristan Ryans. That is Kevin Walker. Be safe, be well, and let's go racing.